Hello my students in grade 5. Today we will start solving the science revision sheets for the fourth quarter. So let's start with question number 1. We have to choose the correct answer. What happens as you go deeper into the ocean? As we said before that as we go down in the ocean, the temperature gets colder. Colder means that the temperature decreases or gets lower. But what happens to the pressure? The pressure or the force of the water that pushes down increases. So we will choose the answer. Temperature decreases and the pressure increases. Letter D. Next question. Which part of the ocean is the arrow pointing to? This arrow, we have to know which part is pointing to. This one is the continental shelf, or the continental rise, or the basal plain, or the continental slope. So let's revise them together and then we will figure out what this part is. First part that gradually slopes, we call it continental shelf. And then this part that steeply slopes or suddenly slopes, we call it continental slope. The base of the continental slope, which is the sea, we call it continental rise. And the flat part of the ocean floor and the most of the ocean floor, we call it a basal plain. So letter C. Next question, question 3. What type of equipment is needed to survive the high water pressure in the deep ocean? Divers, they need a special kind of equipments or vehicle to use to go down in the ocean. And this kind of equipment, we call it boats, scuba tanks, submersibles, or water bottles. Yes, to go down deeper in the ocean, we need submersibles. So the answer is letter C, submersibles. Question 4 in the next page. What causes waves to form? Waves are caused by the push of the wind. What means waves? Waves are up and down on the ocean surface. Up and down movements of the ocean surface, and usually waves caused by wind. So the answer for this, wind blows over the surface of the water. So the answer is letter C. If there is no wind, there will be no waves. Question 5. What causes tides? The reasons of tides. Tide means the rise and the fall of the ocean level. Sometimes the ocean level is high during high tide, and sometimes the ocean level is low during low tide. Mainly the reason for tides, the pull of the moon. Also the sun, but mainly the moon, because as we said, the moon is closer to us. So the gravity of the moon is more than the gravity of the sun, and that's why the moon pulls the water toward it as it rotates the earth. So the answer for this question will be letter C, the pull of the moon. Question 6. What are the deepest parts of the ocean called? If you remember, we said that the ocean floor is not flat. Some places are high, like mountains and volcanoes, and some places are very low, like deep valleys. And this kind of deep valleys, we call it trenches, mountains, bridges, valleys. The deepest part in the ocean is called trench. So the answer for this question would be letter A. Question 7. What physical feature of the ocean moves large amount of water through the ocean? This feature means very large wave that comes usually after hurricanes. It's a very huge wave that can destroy a city. This wave is called rip, tide, storm surge, or current. This kind of waves we call it storm surge. It's a very big wave that comes after hurricanes. So we will choose letter C. Next question, question 8. The shoreline shown in the figure was once a solid wall. If you notice here, this was like a mountain near to the beach or near to the ocean. But with the time, what happens to this big rock? As we see, it's broken, and we have here a cave, we have smaller rocks, pieces. So what makes this action, or what causes this action in the rock? What action along the beach caused it to become eroded or broken, like what we see here in the picture? This is caused by high tides, wave action, blowing wind, digging animals. Imagine yourself a rock near to the ocean, and the waves hit you hundreds of times per day. So what will happen to you at the end? Yes, you will break down. So what causes this big rock to break down? Of course, the wave action, because waves are strong and they have a lot of energy, and that's why they cause breaking down for the rock. So we will choose wave action, letter B. Next, question 9. How much of the Earth's surface is covered by water? We know that we have 5 oceans. 5 oceans, they cover almost 71% of the Earth's surface. So 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Most of this water is salty water in oceans. Question 10. What kind of land forms were formed by volcanoes underwater? Volcanoes underwater, they make lava, and lava goes up and cools down, and it changes into rock. And this rock, big rock, forms islands, letter D. Next, question 11. What does the picture show here? If we have here the sun, and here the moon, and look here, they make L shape. In this position, we call this kind of tides, we call it neap tide. So when the moon and the sun, they are not in the same direction, we call it neap tide. But if the moon here in the middle between the sun and the earth, in this case we call it spring tide. So remember, when you see this L shape, it's called neap tide. And in the neap tide, as we said, the moon, because it's closer to us, it pulls more water than the sun. And this doesn't make very high tide. Okay, so the answer for this question will be letter A. Question 12. Which kind of wave is usually produced after hurricanes? After hurricanes, we have special kind of waves called tsunami, tides, storm surge, or currents. Yes, after hurricanes, we have a huge wave called storm surge. Question 13. If you have ever stood on the shore of a beach, you have noticed that the wind never seems to stop blowing. What effect does wind have on the water? Why the waves, they don't stop? Because it cools off the water, it smooths out the water, it causes waves to form, it blows the water out of the sea. What effect does the wind do? Yes, it causes waves to form. So wind causes waves. Next question, question 14. Sarah wades into the ocean. On which part of the ocean floor is she standing? Sarah went to the beach, and then she went in the water and she wades on one part of the ocean. Which part of the ocean floor she is standing on? This part will be the continental shelf, continental slope, basal plain, or mid-ocean ridge. The continental shelf, as we said, is the first part of the ocean floor, and it gradually slopes. Continental slope, very steeply slope. A basal plain is a flat part on the ocean floor. It's down on the ocean floor in the bottom. Mid-ocean ridge, it's a group of mountains and valleys in the middle of the ocean. So of course Sarah, she will move, or she moves, or she wades in which part of the ocean floor? Yes, the continental shelf. Question 15. Earth's nickname is a blue marble. As we said before, that astronauts, they call the Earth blue marble. This is because it appears blue from the space. The blue is actually the water that covers most of the Earth's surface. How many oceans are on Earth? Do you remember how many oceans on Earth? We have 5 oceans on Earth. Let's say them together: Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Southern Ocean, and Arctic Ocean. So the number of oceans are 5. Question 16. Scientists must use special equipment to study the oceans. One such piece of equipment is a submersible. Why it is necessary to use a submersible when studying deep ocean water? Why scientists today have to use this kind of submarines, special submarines called submersibles, to discover the ocean floor? Is that because the wave action is too strong for a person to swim in? The submersibles protect the scientists from waves. It provides protection from sharks and other predators, and this is the only reason, to protect people from sharks and predators in the water. The water pressure in deep water is too high for humans, or it provides the quiet necessary for human underwater. Protect them from the water pressure, number one. And of course, then they can protect them from sharks and other predators. So the main reason that they use submersibles, not any normal submarines, because of the water pressure first. Question 17. Imagine standing on the beach, looking out at the ocean. Suppose you could walk straight into the water and walk all the way across the ocean floor. What ocean floor feature would you first encounter? Let's see here. If you are walking on the ocean floor, let's see, imagine that you start walking on the ocean floor. Which part of the ocean floor you would touch first or walk on it first? The first part, of course, is that part outside. And this part, if you remember, we call it continental shelf. So the answer will be letter B. Question 18. What would be the same at the ocean surface and 1,000 meters below the surface? The only thing that will not change up from down, what do you think? The amount of light? Do you think the amount of light up like down? Of course no, because up more light, down less light, and sometimes dark. Temperature? No, of course no, because the temperature also on the top is hotter than down. As we go down in the ocean, it gets colder and the temperature gets lower. The water pressure? Of course no, because the water pressure up is low, but while down, going deeper in the ocean, the water pressure increases. D. Salinity. Yes, salinity is the answer, because up like down, the amount of salt on the top is the same amount of salt deep in the ocean. So we will choose letter D, salinity. We know salinity is the amount of salt in the water. Question 19. Your friend has drawn a picture for a scuba diver waving to a person. So your friend drew a picture for a scuba diver waving to a person in the submersible album, which is resting on the flat and basal plane. What is wrong with your friend? What's wrong in this picture? So your friend is waving his hand and say hi or bye-bye to the people inside the submersibles. What here is wrong? That a basal plane has hills and not flat? Actually, this is not wrong, because yes, the basal plane has hills and not flat. That the diver would be crushed by the water pressure at that depth? Yes, of course. The diver cannot reach very deep oceans with only the swimming suit or diving suit, because as we said, down is very high pressure. So the diver for sure would be crushed by the water pressure at that depth, and he will not be able to make bye-bye for his friend, for the people inside the submersible. So the answer for this question will be letter B. Question 20. Ari and his family were on a tropical island vacation. While boating one afternoon, Ari spotted a large coral complex that seemed to grow right around the island. What might this coral have been? Do you remember when we said that the island that formed from volcanoes, by the time corals or coral reefs, they grow around and they encircle the island, and by the time the island sinks down and leaving only a ring of corals, and this ring of corals we call it, do you remember, an atoll, a lagoon, volcanic island, or continental shelf? Yes, the ring of corals we call it an atoll, so we will choose letter A. So this was everything for today. In this video we solved until question 20, and in the next video we will complete solving the revision sheet. So see you and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.